Today, I want to do a deep dive on what is by far the most important part of any Hyrox race, and that is running. The reason I say it's the most important part is because, time wise, it is by far the most significant. At, you know, well over 50% of your race is spent running. So, this is where we have the biggest opportunity to shave off time, to improve, and to get faster. When you think about most stations, you can probably improve on them by a matter of seconds, whereas running, uh, improving by multiple minutes overall throughout the race is quite feasible to be doing, which is why it should absolutely be the central piece of your Hyrox training. So I want to do a deep dive on specifically how to increase your pace for the running component of Hyrox. And to start off, I want to dive into the just straight up running component of your Hyrox training. So the number one thing here, you've probably heard this a lot, but there's a reason for it, and that's because it works, is you want to start off with a huge aerobic base of zone 2 work. This is common amongst all aspects of running, whether you're training for a marathon or half marathon, 10K, 5K, whatever it is. It's true there. It's true in Hyrox as well. Zone 2 is the way to go. So that'll be about 80% of your work. The remaining 20% is your more intense quality work. And this is running that you want to be doing at your Hyrox pace or a little bit faster generally. With that said though, you don't want to be going too much faster than your Hyrox pace, as you don't want to be losing that specificity that you get from running. If you're all out sprinting, the carryover to Hyrox is a lot less than if you're going at the same pace as your Hyrox running or within a few seconds per kilometer of that. Now, in terms of this quality or intense work, there's lots of different ways you can structure these runs. One good starting point is just the classic tempo run where you're out going at a constant pace for the whole time, and that pace could very well be whatever your target Hyrox pace is. You go out and run 5 or more, a little more kilometers at that pace and just hold the whole time. And of course you can slowly increase the distance or the pace over time. Next one, this is a much bigger bucket in terms of ways you can structure this, is interval runs. So lots of different ways to manipulate this. You can manipulate the work and rest pace, the work and rest distance, the ratio between the two of them. So if you're going at a much faster pace, then maybe you have longer rest periods, or maybe your work pace is much closer to your Hyrox pace, in which case it's really short rest times, and the paces during the rests are just slightly above what your Hyrox pace would be. And of course you can change the number of rounds you're doing if you're doing interval runs. Again, lots of different ways to do it. One caveat that I'll add to this is that I wouldn't recommend a full rest where you're just stopping and not doing anything. I would recommend you at least keep moving, keep a light jog going, unless you're specifically training for doubles. And the reason for this is that during a singles Hyrox race, if you're absolutely trying to maximize time, you're probably not taking a full rest where you're fully stopped. So there isn't necessarily a ton of value to doing so in your training. And overall, the goal, be it with the tempo run or the various forms of interval runs, is to slowly progress over time. And like I mentioned earlier, there's lots of different variables that can be controlled and manipulated here. And it's just about finding a way that you can slowly progress over time in a sustainable way and in a systematic way. So you don't want to be doing this blindly. You absolutely want to have some structure to your progression. The next major component to increasing your Hyrox running pace is the running that you do in Hyrox circuits. So when I say Hyrox circuit, I mean some combination of running, station work. You can add in other forms of cardio too, but the main thing that we're focusing on here from a running pace perspective is of course going to be the running part of the circuit. So you're going to want your pace here to be similar to your target Hyrox pace. It doesn't have to be the exact same, but it should be pretty close. And again, similar to when we're doing interval runs, lots of different ways to progress the running part of your circuits over time. So you can increase the pace, you can increase the distance, you can increase the number of rounds in the circuit. But again, the key thing is there's some kind of structured plan and you are progressing over time. Now, I do have a few specific tips with respect to the running part of your Hyrox circuits. So number one is that ideally you want to be running on flat ground, actually running instead of using a treadmill. And this is the main reason for this is it tends to be a little bit easier to run on the treadmill, and running on flat ground, as you will be during race day, is going to help you build up that familiarity and feeling of what you're going to be feeling on race day so that you are prepared for that feeling. With that being said, though, there's a lot of gyms that just don't necessarily have the setup to allow you to be running like that as part of your circuits. So the number two option here would be to use the assault treadmill, or some people might call this a self-propelled treadmill. But the main benefit to this is that, again, much like race day conditions, you have to pace yourself here rather than having the treadmill set that for you. So this tends to be a little bit more challenging than running just on the traditional treadmill. And I find the resistance level of running there is quite similar as well. Versus if you're just running on the traditional treadmill, I find that same speed on flat ground running versus on the treadmill is going to feel a little easier on the treadmill. So finally, as an alternative, if you don't have a space where you can do some actual running or access to an assault treadmill, you can set the incline on your treadmill to usually 1 degree is a good spot for most people, and that tends to make the feeling much more similar to running on flat ground. I will add, though, there is one big benefit in my mind to running on the treadmill, and that is that you can fairly easily, systematically, progressively overload the speed over time, simply by adding 0.1 to whatever speed you're going from week to week. So I want to look at how we can assess if we're actually making progress on increasing our Hyrox running speed. So our key metric here is to look at Hyrox circuits. Of course, there is value and insight to be gained from how we're progressing in just our regular runs as well. But the way that we're running in Hyrox circuits is going to be much more relevant to race day performance than if you're just outside for a zone 2 or a tempo run, something like that. So the key questions you want to be asking yourself here are, am I able to run faster in my circuits? And number 2, which in my mind is equally as important, is my circuit getting faster overall? So the reason why we want to be asking these questions together and not just am I running faster is you could be running faster, but your overall time is staying the same or getting slower, which essentially translates to same or slower Hyrox time. And there's different potential reasons for this. number one, maybe your running is not actually getting faster, but you're just pushing the running harder, and then you have less energy for stations, and then you don't move as quickly through the station work that you're including in your circuit. Or number two, maybe your running is getting faster, but you're costing yourself some muscular endurance. This could be especially true if you're cutting some weight as you're getting faster as a runner. Cutting the weight will help you in almost all cases become a faster runner, but it could most certainly cost you some muscle, which of course will cost you muscular endurance and, like I said, your ability to move through the stations effectively. So just to summarize that quickly, again, we want to be making sure that we're running faster and that the circuits are getting faster overall. One additional consideration there when you're assessing your progress is how is your RPE, so rate of perceived exertion, changing throughout the circuit, from week to week, especially during the run portion of the circuit. So if you're at the same level of RPE from week to week, but you're getting faster, that's a great sign. If you're pushing yourself to run faster each week on the circuit, but your RPE is rapidly increasing, you may be starting to push too hard on the running when you're not actually making a ton of progress in the running, and you want to maybe slow down how hard you're pushing the running when doing those circuits. So with all that in mind, I think there's a lot to take in and consider in your training there. But if you are looking for a structured plan to put in place to improve your Hyrox running and get you to a faster overall Hyrox time in your next race, you can check out my app, Hybrid Strength Fitness. It is linked in the description, and it'll build a plan custom for you to help you train for your Hyrox, including your circuits, including your running, and of course it will include your strength training as well.